So we're going to deal with the mixed side of 8-2, and I want to start with number 9. Just to recap, the ways of graphing: identify your asymptotes, design a table, putting in your vertical asymptote or your x equals asymptote. And then this is where we varied a bit on Friday on how you could do this, but this how you can find those coordinates in your table. I'm going to focus in on that part today to try to help out those of you struggling. Find the x and y intercepts are always good things to find as well. Remember, x-intercept is when y is 0, y-intercept when x is 0. Okay, and then put in a large value of 10 and a large negative value, or excuse me, a large positive value for x and a large negative value for x. This is just a way of just double checking your work. It's kind of your check to make sure your graph is trailing off to the correct spots. Okay, and then draw your asymptotes and plot the points. So number 9 says y equals, what's it say?
3 over x minus 1 plus
3 over x minus 1 plus 3.
2.
Plus 2? Oh, plus 2. All right, so the piece I'm going to put in here is my 3 over x plus 1. And then we're going to add the 2 to the end. So the 2 will get added to everything. X minus 1. Unbelievable. I'm just going to restart that table. Sheesh. Okay, let's try it again since I made so many mistakes. 3 over x minus 1, all plus 2. Okay. All right. So we have our plus 2. That's just a constant piece. And now we're going to put in our vertical asymptote. So we need to know our asymptotes. The x equals asymptote, our vertical, and our y equals. Okay, so go ahead and tell your neighbor what those asymptotes are there.
X equals 1, y equals 2.
Yes, madam.
1 and
Sir.
or 1 and 2.
Yes, sorry.
All right. What's our x asymptote?
1.
1. It's whatever makes the denominator 0 where x is, so that is 1 in this case. What's our y asymptote? 2. It's our k value, which is 2 right there. Okay. So if I'm putting in my vertical asymptote here, I'm plugging in 1 for x. Okay, I know that's going to give me a 0 on the, it's going to be 3 over 1 minus 1, or 0. Okay, so that part is undefined. And since it's undefined there, it's going to be undefined here, and that gives us our asymptote at 1. So we go to x equals 1. We draw in our asymptote. Okay. Okay, I think I'm going to use a different color here. Maybe that'll make it easier to see. I don't know if that made a difference. Okay, and then the other route to go on this, rather than picking values that multiply to make 3, you could try to make the denominator equal 1 or negative 1. Because when you divide by 1 or negative 1, it's a pretty easy thing to divide by. You get the top number. So if I want to make this equal 1, what would I have to put in for x to make it equal 1? 2. So put in 2 right there. Okay, so I now have 3 over 2 minus 1. 2 minus 1, which is 3 over 1 or 3. Okay, so we could say, well, that's just 3. 3 plus 2 is 5. Okay, I could try to make it negative 1. What do I need to put in to make it negative 1 in there? 0. Which happens to also be my y-intercept if you want to write that in there. Okay, so because when x is 0, but we have 3 over 0 minus 1 or negative 1, which ends up giving us negative 3. So negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. So we could try to make it positive and negative 1. Okay, the other thing you can do is you could try to make your denominator equal your numerator, the positive and the negative value of your numerator. So I could try in this case to make it equal positive 3 or negative 3, because if I divide 3 by positive 3, I get 1. Divide 3 by negative 3, I get negative 1. Okay, so what would make this equal 3?
4.
4. So we put 4 in. Okay, so 3 over 4 minus 1, which in this case is 3. So this 3 over 3 gives me 1, and 1 plus 2 is 3. Okay, and if I want to make this equal negative 3, what do I need to put in? Negative 2. So 3 over negative 2 minus 1, which you know is negative 1 there. Okay, this gives you negative 3. This one gave you 3. Okay. All right. So 3 over negative 1, or 3 over negative 3 gives me negative 1. Negative 1 plus 2 is 1. Okay. There, oops, this was 1 up here. That's why that looked weird. Okay. So, do we have the right thing here? 3, yeah. Okay. Okay. So now we have 4 points. Just like we had before. It's a different way to graph it. Okay, it's a different way to do it, and you'll have your preference. It's kind of up to you which way you decide to do it. All right, I like both methods. So I've got my y asymptote. I have the ordered pair negative 2, 1. So we got our negative 2 and our 1. It's right there. Got 0, negative 1. 0 and negative 1. I've got 2, 5. And 4, 3. Okay, I know this one should bend that way. I could always test negative 10 to see if that was accurate. Okay, and that way. We should know that this graph is going to exist in this upper right quadrant. If it was, we would normally think of this up here as quadrant 1, but our asymptotes have shifted it. And this is our bottom left quadrant. Think about your A term. Your A term tells you where it's going to exist. So since this is positive, just like slope, if I was to graph a line, say on this bottom one, that line right there would have positive slope. Right? It starts in the bottom quadrant, ends in the top. Okay? And just a kind of general line there. Okay? A line that has a negative slope does that. It starts in the top quadrant, top left, and ends in the bottom right. Okay. So if this, in this case, if A was negative, my graph would be up here in the top left and in the bottom right. But since A is positive, it starts in the bottom left and ends in the top right. Yeah, Nick?
On the quiz, would it be okay if we just put 5 points in, or do we need to put 7?
I'd be fine with those 5. Yeah. Okay. Other questions? I'll specify more on the quiz. Like I'll give you like different spots I want you to apply. If you can always add more boxes, but you should usually fill up your grid. In this case, for this assignment, I'm fine if you just do 5. You don't have to fill up these points. But on the test, you'd want to probably fill out your whole table. Okay. Other questions? Just out of curiosity, how many like this process better than the other process? How many like the other process better? So how many have no, you like don't care? You like, I just graph. That's what I do. Okay. All right. So there you got it. You have your assignment. Go ahead and go at it there. One other question that's come up on the assignment now is on problems 1 through 8. This is write an equation for this translation. What's a translation? Tell your neighbor what a translation is again. Okay, another word for a translation is what?
Slide.
A shift.
It's a shift, but more specifically, it's a slide. Left, right, up, down, side to side. How many do remember translations from Geo?
Oh, yeah.
You slid things around. You're taking this graph right here, and you are sliding it. How do you know how far you slide it? Well, your asymptotes. This graph, the asymptotes are at 0, 0. Why? Because right now it's sitting at y equals negative 3 over x plus 0. We just don't show the 0 because that would be redundant. Plus 0. H is 0, k is 0. Here they're saying h and k is no longer 0. It's 2 and 1. So where does the 2 get plugged in at? Yeah, it gets plugged in right down here. So the 2, that becomes a minus 2. Why? Because it's whatever would make that 0. So that's no longer x plus 0, it's x minus 2 on the bottom. What's the k? Well, it's 1. How does that change this equation? It now no longer says plus 0, it says plus 1. So my new equation, without scribbling everything, is y equals negative 3 over x minus 2 plus 1. It's just your shifts of your asymptotes. Questions? Good question, Nick.
Thank you.
All right. Go at it.